Video games are a loud and lasting presence in our society. According to a study by Isabella Granick and Adam Labelle, over 70% of gamers, including early teenagers, play with a friend. A separate study conducted by Christopher J. Ferguson and Cheryl K. Olson claims that 7th and 8th graders primarily play video games as a pro-social activity. However, another study by Sarah M. Coyne found that gaming caused conflict in relationships, citing lower openness and more aggression. With conflicting professional research, it's hard to come to a solid conclusion on the topic of how video games affect early teenage interaction. Through this video, with the help of our professors and peers, we aim to answer that question. Do video games harm a teenager's ability to socialize?
I think when I was young teen, game was the best. We formed such good bond, friends and cousins become brothers. Because of video games, so much teamwork, so much bonding. Friends that will last forever.
Oh, so social life 13 to 16 would have started out strong, then dipped, then gone back up again. And actually it's interesting because video games had a part in that. Transitioning from freshman year, or 8th grade to freshman year of high school, I lost all of my friends because they decided that their idea of a good time had become things like drugs and alcohol, and that just wasn't me. And it was actually one day that I wore a Halo t-shirt to school that I met my friend Kyle. 5 years later now, Kyle is probably my second best friend in the world. We still talk all the time. And from him, I kind of integrated into his social group because mine was gone, and actually ended up making all of my friends in high school because of video games in the long run.
I played games by myself, but I still went out with friends and did other social extracurricular things, but games didn't affect it at all.
It's not like video games hindered my social life, it's just that I had to make time after.
I say yes because most of my friends I hanged around were really similar in my respect. We were all nerds in our own way, and we like to play video games.
I feel that I went out decently. I did participate in extracurriculars. A lot of them were sort of nerdy though, like book clubs, so on and so forth. That was me growing up. So yeah, I feel like video games really didn't have no impact on my extracurriculars whatsoever. No.
I feel like some people they just don't know time management very well. Video games are all they play and they don't really have social lives.
I do not think that game affect the personality or the social life of the person. When you're a caterpillar, you become butterfly. Nothing can change that.
This is only from what I've seen through my brother, who plays a lot more. He has an ongoing social life. He talks to his friends at school and hangs out with them, and even after he gets home, he gets right on the computer, calls them up on Skype, and starts playing the same games with them. So he's kind of constantly with them. I'd say that adds to his social life.
A correlation, sure. It depends on what you mean by social lives, because I think that people going outside and doing things together might have a more interesting correlation than simply people socializing through the games.
I feel like it does shape their social lives somewhat, that a lot of their friends mainly are other gamers, so they don't really broaden, I guess, their social circles.
When we think of social behavior, we think face-to-face behavior, people being together, but that's not really the case all the time. People have online communities branching out to thousands of other people, and people can be social while playing games.
I think it does not matter. When you say ni hao to person in real life or ni hao to person online, it's all the same. We are bonding.
Some certain games are solo games. So if you just play solo games, you aren't really talking, you're just playing a video game, going through a story. And then there are those games where you play socially and you talk to friends, meet random strangers, and you have the same interests. And sometimes you might find out your next door neighbor plays the same game.
I've made a lot of friends because of video games, and I've hung out with them, more than just gaming. In both senses of a social life, both online and in person, video games have helped.
And I just feel like if you're always gaming, from people I know from my experience, yeah, they have friends, but they're also gamers. While you can meet people from all around the world and different people, it's just those people.
Yes, there are some people who are just complete hermits, who will just not interact with people. And then you have people who will just play games for a little bit and chat with their friends, then go out, hang out, and have fun with the friends that they made, either in person or sometimes online. I think it's like if you go out and make it so that way you make friends, then you'll definitely like have that social interaction. Otherwise, you'll just be a hermit.
My understanding of the literature is that it doesn't support making blanket conclusions about video games in general. I think that you can absolutely learn, things like accountability and responsibility in a sort of civil, structural way from video games. And that's part of the reason why the Army put together a recruitment video game tool. If you engage in any antisocial behavior, you get thrown in the stockade and you get locked out of the game for a period of time. And the idea is the Army's not just trying to teach you combat skills, they're teaching you to behave as part of a unit, and they don't want people who are going off, going rogue and doing their own thing. They want people who can follow instructions. So that's something that also you can use video games to teach people. I think that it depends on how you're defining social life, is really what it comes down to. If you're going to make the distinction that virtual social interactions are somehow less than real world social interactions, then yeah, I think that it is easy to have a social life that exists in this virtual space. But if you're making the argument that a social life is a social life, and it doesn't matter whether you're having it in a real world community or in a virtual world community, then I don't really think that there's much of a difference. I would have to say that video games have definitely had an impact. I mean, you can't look at society and say that we're not influenced by video games. But I don't know that it's necessarily good, bad, or indifferent. It's just something that has changed in society.
I know that some research shows that playing video games can lead to antisocial behavior or a decrease in social activity with peers. But I know that there's also research that shows the opposite. And I believe that from what I've seen, what I've experienced is not only do video games not decrease your social activity, but it can lead to a great increase in social activity. It's just a different kind of social activities. People have this, I think, fantasy world mentality of what the world was like before video games, and it was that we all sat around and talked to each other, and we all had these great interpersonal skills. That's not true. That's not the way it was. I lived it and I remember it. We didn't all sit around and speak to each other face to face, and everybody got along great and our skills were great. We just actually wouldn't communicate. So I think the difference now is in these virtual worlds, people are communicating a lot more. For good or for bad. There's obviously some good stuff and there's some bad stuff, but I think the more people communicate, the better communicators they become.
What I know about video games is that my grandson, who will turn 7 in May, is always telling me about the video games that he's playing. And also I've been around him when he's playing video games, and he loves them. In the Nicomachean Ethics, Aristotle explains the characteristics that a relationship has to have in order to count as a friendship. For one thing, it's a lifelong relationship, and you have to spend time with the person every day. And you have to be there for them constantly so that you can encourage them to be as good as they possibly can be. I don't know much about the competitive gaming community, but I do know that there are some people who are really good who are followed by others. And I would hesitate to call the relationships that you have online friendships. If that's taking time away from real, genuine friendships with people that you seek out on a day-to-day basis and to whom you're loyal, I would worry about that a lot. On the other hand, I don't know what the world's going to be like in 40 or 50 years. It could be that people will need that kind of contact, that kind of stimulation that they get online. It certainly wouldn't work for me at this point in life, but I'm not arrogant enough to say that my conception of what a valuable human relationship is ought to characterize what a valuable human relationship will be for you in 40 years. It may very well be that some of your friends will be online. It would seem to me that it would be a rather incomplete relationship if you did not meet them in person, but perhaps I'm just a dinosaur.
In conclusion, there's no concrete answer as to whether or not video games affect a teenager's ability to socialize in a negative or positive way. However, From the opinions of the interviewed professors and the video gamers themselves, video games do not appear to have a significantly negative impact on the social lives of adolescents, or at the very least, cannot be pinpointed with the responsibility due to a multitude of social factors. This project was successful in providing different viewpoints to a topic that initially seemed to have only one explanation. Although the preconception of this topic was that video games harm the social development of adolescents by occupying their social lives with sedentary screen time, much has been argued to explain that numerous multiplayer video games actually facilitate healthy and widespread social networks for many people.